Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Dan.
This
Stone.
is Dexter from The Offspring.
Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is David Lapp.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick
I'm
Gillette.
Christopher
This is
Knopf.
Dr. Bob Greenberg.
I'm Laird Hamilton.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Valley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
What's up? I'm Jonny Moseley, Olympic gold medalist and founder of IOTA, roasted organic sunflower kernels. Please check out mightyiota.com. I'm also the chief mountain host at Squaw Valley if you want to come ski with me, one of my favorite jobs. And then I also executive produce Jonny Moseley's Wildest Dreams, a killer adventure show that you can find on YouTube.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
Before I forget to do that, that would be terrible.
Yeah.
I was thinking how long it had been since we were in the same room, and it's got to be La Clusaz in 1994.
That's the one. I mean, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So rad.
Oh.
You were in the military or something, right? What were you doing over there?
Yeah, I was a spy in the Army, and I was in Germany. So, I was new to the unit because that meet was like in February or January or something like that.
Yeah.
And I saw that you guys were coming through, and I'm like, fuck if I'm going to miss that. That's just a few hours away. I could not get a single friend of mine because I wasn't really close with anybody yet. I couldn't get a single one of them to go, yeah, I'll go on a road trip with you. That turned out to be incredible. So it's hilarious.
I've never been back to that town since. I loved that place. We had that long room and we were kind of downtown. I mean, that was a fun town.
So I'm going to introduce you to Mark Valley. Mark's an actor, and we brought him on the show because he's fucking awesome. He also West Point grad, Army guy, and was in Germany at one point also. So he co-hosts with me. There's another guy named John that's in the Bay that co-hosts also, but today it's Mark and I. So you've seen some of Mark's work. Mark was on Boston Legal, and he's on a show called Human Target. He's a bunch of other things. So.
Yeah, I thought when I saw the Skype picture come up, I was like, "Damn, I recognize that guy."
That's
why.
why.
I couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And he's here taking pictures and stuff and everything else.
Nice. What's up? I'm Jonny Moseley, Olympic gold medalist and founder of IOTA, roasted organic sunflower kernels. Please check out mightyiota.com. I'm also the chief mountain host at Squaw Valley if you want to come ski with me, one of my favorite jobs. And then I also executive produce Jonny Moseley's Wildest Dreams, a killer adventure show that you can find on YouTube.
And you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
Oh, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
Perfect. Man, this is exciting. Dude, I cannot tell you. So when we first started the podcast, we made a list of the people that we know that have done something incredible. And I'm like, I know Jonny Moseley, and it might take a minute to get to you because you're a busy dude. But it's my birthday today. I got my arms in the air. I got a big smile. I'm looking at my friend Mark, and I'm talking to Jonny Moseley on the
Pete, happy
on the phone.
birthday. I had no idea. Happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
Happy birthday, Pete.
Yeah. Oh, so that's why you're wearing the birthday hat.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Better than the birthday suit.
Yes.
I can tell you some stories about that. Man, so for those that don't know, Jonny won gold in Nagano in freestyle. You're incredible. You've hosted a bunch of different reality shows to include Road Rules. And by the way, I'm not reading this off a bio. This is all because I know what you do. You hosted American Ninja. Is that what that show is called?
Yeah, American Ninja Warrior.
Yep. And obviously you have your web series, Jonny Moseley's Wildest Dreams. You've hosted Saturday Night Live. You've been to more than one Olympics, which was huge for me to watch you go out and do it again and absolutely break new ground. But what really makes it special is that we go way back prior to all this stuff. Somewhere in my mom's house is a news story that I did on you when we were up in Squaw. And, man, this is really good to talk to you. And I can't believe it's been 20-plus years, but it's been 20-plus years.
I know, man. It's awesome. I'm so glad we're back in touch. We had such great times, and I have such excellent memories.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. So one of those memories, we were skiing in Utah, and we were sort of out of bounds, and your brother, who's also a world-class skier, there are a bunch of us out there, and we had decided to make me into a mogul. I don't know if you remember this at all, but we buried me in snow, And then some ski patrol guy's coming down, and he's trying to clear them out, and he has no idea who he comes up on. And so everybody goes down. And ultimately what we were doing is we were jumping off of me, and so you did this enormous – I think it was one of those 180 split 180s that you used to do. And the guy's face was like, "Ah, fuck it. You guys know what you're doing." He just left. It's hilarious.
How'd somebody talk you into being a mogul?
I was skiing with these guys, and I'm literally the shittiest skier. I'm all muscle and shoulders.
Hey, Pete, why don't you could be a mogul?
That was Pete's role. It was like Pete'll do it,
Right.
Pete'll do it. That's like that, and let's get Pete to do it. That's kind of like how it was.
So you guys were early. You guys were pre-Jackass, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually, Johnny
hey, Pete,
and I,
Pete, be a speed bump on this street right now.
Johnny and
Pete,
I actually.
wear this cup. We're gonna hit you with the cup as hard as we can.
Do you remember we were same trip? We were up there in Utah, and we all got into you and I got into laundry carts, and basically, your brother and a couple other guys just shoved us down this mountainous parking lot. It was a good time. I'm going to go way back again one more time here, then we'll get caught up on things. When I was in the Army in Germany, saw that you guys, the U.S. team, was coming through France, and I went and saw you win in La Clusaz. It won the overall in addition to something else. But I remember being there and being so proud of what you were doing and knowing that you were about to emerge onto the scene at an Olympic level, and then having some French guy talking about Edgar Grossbaron and how he was the past, and Johnny, he was la future, and he was talking to us in French, and we were having a great time. But he was right, man. You were the future. You were about to take the style out of freestyle and make it more free. And I know you've talked about this stuff a lot, so we won't spend a lot of time here, but I just wanted to tell you, as a guy that knew you, as you came up before you became this Olympic hero, it was awesome to see you have a vision and take and realize that thing, man. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, no, it's funny to think back when you came to see us in La Clusaz, which was, it was World Championship. I was kind of just on the tour, and Edgar was ruling it, and I was kind of making my way, and nobody really knew. It was that time when Rick and I were off in this obscure world of competing in a event that no one really knew about. Of course, the Olympics were sort of this outside notion that we were potentially thinking about and trying. We obviously heavily thinking about it, but whether it was a reality or not was not necessarily there. And no one came to see us that we knew. Nobody. Once we went to Europe, it was we were off the map. It wasn't being covered or anything like that. So it was awesome when you showed up. I remember it was cool to have someone that was wow, this is worthwhile enough. I'm going to take some time out of my schedule over here and go watch these guys compete. So I remember that being kind of memorable. Yeah,
it was funny too, because I stepped into your world for a minute, and the time when I came, everybody apparently got inspired to come see you and your friends, because there was the one guy that's in the Warren Miller films with the dogs. That guy happened to show up, and then I believe at the time your girlfriend was modeling in Geneva or some ridiculous thing, and then she shows up, and it was this convergence of all these different lives and things.
That's true. You're right. That was totally random. Scott Kennett showed up.
Yes, that's right.
That was random. Scott Kennett from Telluride, who is famous for being an amazing skier, but also having a husky dog, would run down every slope he would ski. And he randomly showed up there because he was on his way to Le Grave. That's true. We ran into him there. And then, yeah, that's right. Michelle, my girlfriend, Michelle Merkin, was working in Geneva, and she came up too. That's right. Yeah. Dang, I totally forgot about that.
Well, there's something else that I wanted to bring in. This will get us kind of going forward. Is even back when we were hanging out at Davis, at Rick's fraternity house, having parties and stuff, I remember you asking me, how do I become quotable? How do I know to say things that are going to capture people? And I think you had an idea then that you had a future coming in front of the mic.
I actually asked you that?
Yes.
No, come on.
I swear to God. And my advice was to listen to what I would think Andy Van Slyke in baseball was notable for saying things that made people remember. So yes, absolutely.
Is that Scott Van Slyke's dad?
Yes. Yeah.
Whoa, crazy.
What is it? How do you say things quotable?
Yeah, exactly.
You just have to speak in sound bites, or
I think, that's what he did. He spoke in sound bites. He just took things that were real. It's like, okay, you guys lost the World Series. How'd you get over it? I went fishing. I caught a fish and I punched it in the face and I threw it back in. And when you say things like that, people notice,
People remember it. They won't remember this long speech you give afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know. I think the way to be quoted seems like don't think. I think that's where I was. That's every time I'm like, wow, that's what they picked up, huh? I had no idea I was even going to say in that. So part of it is.
I think
I think a slow moving mind helps you be quotable.
A slow moving mind helps you be quotable.
Yeah.
I think it's also. One thing you could do is just memorize a lot of memorable quotes and just kind of change them up a little bit and toss them in conversation every once in a while.
That works.
When do you think you knew that you needed to be in front of the camera and do some of this hosting stuff that you've done?
Well, that's interesting because I think, there's two parts to it. I definitely was aware of exposure. I definitely wanted some exposure. I was like, why isn't anyone paying attention to us? And I think when, because we were on, the World Cups in the States were on TV twice a year, maybe. And then we'd go to Europe for the rest of the year. And there was a company here in Corte Madera in Marin that produced a bunch of TV shows. Among them was a syndicated ski show called like On the Snow or something with Hank Cashua. And it was just a skiing magazine show. I remember going to them. I walked in their front door and basically said, hey, I saw that they produced it. I remember watching the credits and it said Corte Madera. And I looked them up and I walked in there and I said, hey, I want to get on the show. And, can I send you some video from the World Cup tour? And maybe you can, put some of it on the show. So they said, yeah, send us what you got. So I went on the tour and I might have even been doing it during that time when we were in La Clusaz. I had like a high 8 camera and I was taking just videos from the road, reality show style stuff, behind the scenes stuff, and I would send it in and they started like putting me on the show. So I kind of knew the game, right? Because by the time I was 18, I was starting to sell, get paid a little bit of money by skis, and I knew that the guys that were doing like the Pro Mogul tour and all this, like these sub tours to the World Cup tour, and also skiing and movies were getting more well known than I was. Like the ski companies were happy to give them skis and pay them money because they were actually getting on TV and getting exposure. So I was like, well, shit, that's not cool. I gotta, we're supposedly on the World Cup tour. Like this is the real deal. Yeah. So that was like my first foray into it. Then when I won the Olympics, I had all kinds of ideas basically, and I was able to execute them with fairly the same guys, the same producers, IMG. It was the same guys that I sold that little segment to. Not sold it, but sent that video into that produced that magazine show, had then moved on to run IMG's TV production business. And they approached me after the Olympics and said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I don't want to be only on TV when I win. Like I want to be on TV regularly. And I said, I want to do this event that's called the Jonny Moseley Invitational, where we pit the best skiers against each other in all disciplines. I want to determine who's the best overall skier, and that was a skier cross plus slope style, and everyone had to do both. And so that was like one place. They sold it to NBC, and that was on. Then I said, well, I need a show too, and they said, okay. They said, we have this ski magazine show. Do you want to host it? And I was like, exactly. I want to host the ski magazine show. So they put me on as the host of that show, and that's where I learned to actually start hosting. Like they sent a producer with me and taught me how to like say this and do that, and kind of got my first. It was pretty rudimentary, but I got my first lick at hosting stuff. And I guess I was thinking at that point that I was just trying to. In my mind, I was trying to create this steady exposure. So, across different platforms, like, so that I could leverage that into sponsorship, right? Because that's been the whole name of my game from the time I was 17. That's how you support your freestyle skiing, is you say you're going to do this and win this, so you get on TV this, so the companies will pay you and support your career. So that's the name of the game. So this was just a way for me to kind of bolster my competition exposure. Because in competitions, unless you win, you don't get on TV. So you're kind of like, this was a way to buffer that, I guess, to augment it. And then obviously that hit high gear when I went, in 2002, when they picked me to host Saturday Night Live, and that was really not in my control. They just assumed they sat around the table and decided that I would be the best guy that was in the 2002 Olympics to carry Saturday Night Live. And while I was still in New York, as soon as Saturday Night Live ended, MTV saw it. The casting director from MTV saw Saturday Night Live and called us the next day. And that's how I got the MTV gig and all that stuff.
Yeah, you were great at that part of it, because so many times those guys come on and they don't have the charisma to pull it off. It's just like they did that whole thing with Joe Montana where he just did a voiceover and just saying his own name, because Joe Montana just isn't that charismatic. He's great at football, but he's not a host caliber guy. I also remember when you won in '98, it was like NBC had no idea you guys existed. This goes to your point of like, hey, we're on the World Cup, we're doing this thing, we're touring around, and I'm like, am I the only guy in the world that has a bio piece on Jonny Moseley now that he's like won gold? Like legitimately, like where's the piece that leads up to you winning? It was like a total surprise to those guys that you won, and I was shocked by that. So I can appreciate.
It's a great point too. You're right. I mean, how many times people said, "Oh, what, you just came out of nowhere, huh?" I was like, "The hell are you talking about?" Like I was the top American freestyler and mogul skier from the 94 till leading up to the Olympics in 98. But that's the way the Olympic sports are. Nobody pays attention. It's gotten a little bit different now that NBC has taken it over, because back then, you remember, it was on CBS.
Sure.
And it was kind of like just every 4 years they covered the Olympics. Now, since NBC has such a large investment in it, it's in their best interest to make sure that all the athletes are, they're making are at least somewhat household names before the Olympics starts, so they can get some ratings. So they do a lot more pre-promotion and digging into who potentially is a star and who could win. But it wasn't like that then. To them, plus it was a newer sport, and to them I just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, right. And so how much better is it when they show the video of you hopping down the hill into the holes training, and then you do your first run and everybody goes, what the who is this guy?
Yeah.
Because you did take the game, and there was a couple of you guys that your peers, but you did take it from, twist, 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 and that kind of thing to these incredible acrobatic jumps. That also was just such a missed opportunity for the Olympics. Are you working with NBC now in an official capacity then?
Yeah, so I'm there, the color commentator for moguls, aerials, and ski cross. So I've been doing the last two Olympics, and I'll do this one in Korea. So I'm the second guy. They have the play-by-play, and then they go to me for the expert analysis.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
Do you have any advice for a color commentator, Jonny? I mean, I say that Pete is such a good interviewer. Sometimes I sit and I watch and I forget that I'm actually here. So I feel like I'm just kind of listening to an interesting interview. Yeah, what are the secrets to being a color commentator? I mean, you don't have to be involved in the moment-to-moment stuff, but what are you doing?
Color commentary. I mean, the key with color commentary is it's a research job. And the first time they gave me the opportunity, I did not realize that, and I sucked, and I didn't get invited back for a while. Right. So, you think you know your sport until you actually have to verbalize everything. And get into the nuance of the judging and explain it in relatable terms, and then also all the rule book. Like as an athlete, I didn't really know the rule book that well, but you got to know that when it's live on in the Olympics and it comes down to the wire and it's a tie score or something's close and you don't know, everyone's looking at you to know, and you're like, what? I don't remember that. I never studied that. My coach knew that. That was up to my coaches. I just skied.
Yeah.
So
because you always wonder when you're watching those things and somebody say, "Wow, Lindsey Vonn said that." It's a course like this that she always finds the most challenging because whatever. Do you interview the athletes as well? Is that part of your research? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to get yourself as immersed in it as you can, and have you want to know everything you can. You want to know details. It's like being a journalist in some ways. You're trying to get dirt. You're trying to get insight that other people don't have, and so I spend a lot of time like just on the hill in my ski boots, standing on the side of the course, chatting with course workers, chatting with coaches, chatting with the athletes, standing around, just kind of shooting the breeze until you find a couple little good nuggets.
Right.
And then, you have those kind of at the ready. Now, half the time, the athlete you got a good nugget on doesn't make it into finals, so you just crumple that piece of paper up and throw it away.
Right.
But it's so, like, you end up using 5% of what you gathered, but you still have to have it all ready to go. So. Mm-hmm.
And have you ever done any? I mean, you seem to be like a super accomplished host. And, from hosting you're a mountain host right now. I mean, what goes into that?
Yeah, the mountain host title is kind of funny. I mean, it's
welcome to the mountain. I'm Jonny Moseley.
Yeah, that I made that title up. But one of my I really promote Squaw Valley and I promote the resort. It's easy. It's the resort I grew up at. I love it. It's an easy sell. And one of my most favorite things to do there is to show all the runs that I trained on, and then I have a run named after me there. And so that's kind of a different type of hosting. That's like hosting a party, hosting someone to have a great time, and that's what I do there. Certain times of the year, I do it over Christmas. If you ever come up there, we'll go skiing over the holidays. Oh, but cool. Hosting TV stuff's a little bit different. That's a little bit of a different chore, as you know. Yeah. It's
So I met Matt Iceman before. You worked on American Ninja Warrior.
Oh yeah, Ice.
Yeah, he's a funny kid. Did you work together with him on that? I mean, he's a funny comic.
We did. Yeah, he was already on the show when they brought me on, and really he was the host. I played the color commentator role. They kind of had us set up in these, play-by-play. It was weird because it's kind of like they set it up like it's a sports commentary.
I've seen it, yeah.
but it's actually pretty scripted. So
is it? Oh, I didn't know
kind of funny. Like you do an intro and outro, and then you call it like, I tried to call it like a sporting event, but then we'd go in a studio and actually like read a written voiced over script. Like it was like if you did a TV show and it was like if you did a movie and you had commentary in the movie, like, you're acting like a commentator.
Yeah, or like an award presenter. Like an award presenter. We have to make it sound. God, you guys do really good. I mean, they do that very convincingly.
Yeah.
They do it very well. They do it very well. Yeah, they do it very well.
It never occurred to me that stuff was done in the studio, because you guys do such a great job of it. It does seem like it's done right there. So yeah, that's neat.
You do some of it right there. Some of the commentary is from the actual watching the event and calling it, but most of it's done in the studio.
So you've done a lot of interview shows and a lot of interesting sort of reality. I mean, real events that are actually going on. I mean, when you're being interviewed, do you feel like a certain sense? Like whenever we do an interview, we shut it off. We say, okay, we're done with the interview. That's the part. And there's always like a little shift. We transition into a different type of conversation. And do you notice that line anymore, or is it just kind of so natural for you? Because you seem so natural talking on a show or natural talking in person.
Wait, what was the question?
The question is, do you? That's a good question.
Oh my God.
I guess the question is what's the difference, do you think, really, when you're kind of talking on a show, or you're talking in a reality show, or you're kind of improvising a conversational tone and an actual conversation? Do you still feel that, or is it such a smooth transition for you now that you don't even worry about it?
No, that's, as you know, I mean, I've had to become more, I've had to, become a better actor, because, trying to make something.
Yeah. I guess, I guess the question is do you still know when you're on and when you're off, and how?
Yeah. No,
you know what I mean?
It's a good question. I mean, you know how it is when you say something naturally and then you have to say, you have to say it again.
Yeah.
It's never quite sounds the same, right?
Right.
And so I've gotten much better at matching that, and I would argue that that's acting, and as a result, I've gained a whole lot more respect for acting. It's very hard. It's much harder, I think, to try to, I guess, not fake it, but drum up an emotion that you've already expressed naturally. To then,
reproduce it,
off a reaction. So of course I still notice the difference. I mean, I know when I'm on, when I'm acting, and when I'm not, for sure.
Right. Have you done any acting at all? Any scripted acting or anything?
No. And that's, I would put that also in a separate category, as of skill, for sure. And the only time I did was, I remember after the 98 Olympics, somebody, I don't know, I think some agent in LA got a hold of my manager and said, hey, you think you could do some acting? And they brought me down to try out for Varsity Blues. And they before I went to Varsity Blues, they put me on the set of The Profiler with an acting coach.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the scene I was, had to read for Varsity Blues was sort of, it was intense. It was kind of, it was emotional. I think it was trying to convince, I think one kid committed suicide in that movie or something. So it was like a heavy scene, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could not find that, this guy's banging me against the wall, trying to get me to, not have a smile on my face. But my go-to default is the smile, so
right.
Needless to say, did not go well. And it's a whole different skill, as acting, it's hard. It's not easy. So, but,
yes.
But there are elements in commentary. I mean, I do think some of the best play-by-play guys like Costas and, Troutwig and Michaels, they're damn good actors.
Yeah, they are.
Genuine, but
eloquent as well.
Hey, so you're an incredible athlete. Your sense of balance, that I've seen firsthand is just insane. And after you won gold, you actually participated in that. What was that thing called? It was not Battle of the Network Stars, but it was the athlete version. And you competed against Jason Sehorn and a bunch of other guys. And I remember you wore it seemed like in my head you wore a Hawaiian shirt and a bucket hat, and you did the basketball thing and the rowing thing, and then you had to run a quarter mile, and it was ridiculous because you're so gifted at these things and you've worked so hard. You were able to go out and do this this multi skill event. Is there a sport that you're not good at?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tons of them, and yes, I wore a Hawaiian shirt and went down there. I went down there thinking I was going to get my ass kicked. I mean, that's the bottom line. I was and got invited to the Battle of the Superstars or Superstars competition. And my whole life I'd been look, freestyle skiers when we were kids, were known as the non-athletes, right? These guys are a bunch of partiers. They don't train like the alpine racers, and they're not real athletes. Well, so you hear that enough, you're like, well, shit, I guess I'm not. I mean, it certainly seems like I train really hard, and I do a lot of crazy stuff, and it feels like work, but I guess apparently it's not, according to everybody else. So I kind of started to believe that. And I remember going down to Jamaica, well, this is going to be fun. I'm bringing Jeff. We're just going to party the whole time. I'm going to get my ass kicked in these competitions. And then all of a sudden I was like, leading the damn thing. And then I beat Jason Sehorn in the half-mile run or whatever. And I was like, what the hell? I thought these guys made money running for a living, you know? So it was a shock to me. I was not thinking, oh, I'm going to, you know, get these guys. And I guess it made me feel, you know, and since then, I think a skier's won it like every year, Bodie and Jeremy. I mean, the years after, it was always skiers. So there's probably something to training at high altitude, and skiing is, you know, it's a lot of pretty hardcore. You do a lot of running, a lot of jumping, a lot of plyometrics. It's a well-rounded sort of fitness program. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm good at everything. That's part of my ego. You know, I'll go into something like I'm going to own it and get spanked, but that's just part of, I just love sports. Like I love learning every type of sport. And so, I mean, I would say I'm not good at it, but I do feel like the one thing I'll give myself credit for is I do feel like, you know, and you know, Rick, my brother, he's everything he approached was about breaking it down, you know, and analyzing it, overanalyzing it, analyzing it again. And to him, everything was fixable. You know, it's like everything had a mechanical component to it that could be figured out. And, you know, and in sports, I think that's very applicable to sports. There is a way to figure out almost every sport, to hack it, I guess, you know, to figure out how to get better at it. And it's only a matter of time until I feel like I can figure it out to some extent, you know. And
I want to ask you about that because, you know, as a guy that's going to do color commentary here for the Winter Olympics that are coming up, there's different approaches to your discipline. You know, there's Rick's style where it's controlled and I'm going to do this, you know, these things. I'm going to be the first one down the mountain doing the most turns with the most precision, you know, and then you said, well, I think I can go higher, jump and do more awe-inspiring jumps. And so there's people that approach these things different way. There's the person that seeks perfection and there's the person that seeks amplitude. There's a balance. When you see these skiers and you assess them and you kind of handicap them, what are you looking for? What strikes you? What are the rules that you've learned like this might work?
It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, something I reflect on a lot, you know, when I'm analyzing and trying to predict who's going to win and trying to see who really has a chance and who doesn't, and then trying to reconcile that with the judging, etc. You know, you're looking for someone who, I mean, unfortunately, you're looking for the full package, right? The winner is going to have everything going on. It's not going to be one thing or the other. So that makes it kind of clear, and hopefully they make it clear. You know, you can't be too perfect and too slow. Like you can't just have perfect, beautiful turns, but not be going fast enough. You can't be, you have to be technically dominant in the jumps, especially now. If you look at moguls, like you can't be doing a trick that's, you know, half as difficult as the other guy and beautiful and expect to win. I mean, I'm not a guy who believes in that. And that's probably the only spot where I get a little bit in trouble when I'm commentating, is because I tend to think like, okay, the hardest run should be the best run. Like I like people doing things that are technically difficult. And I also would love to see originality. Unfortunately, there's not really a score category for originality, and that is obviously what I kind of bucked up against in 2002 and still hasn't really changed. Like once someone starts doing a trick, it gets a certain degree of difficulty, everyone starts doing that same trick, and it's part of the problem with the sport right now from a just from a visual standpoint, is everyone's doing the same damn thing.
Yeah.
So that's not really something I can change or control. But in the end, I think one thing like a viewer can look at, and one thing that I think it comes back to, is you look at the roots of freestyle skiing, you look at the roots of action sports in general, it's got to impress. Like you should be able to sit back and watch it and go, hell yeah, that was awesome. Like without having to know what the trick is or whatever, it should have enough like power and energy in the run and a little bit of wildness. Like it should be rad, you know. It shouldn't be too perfect and just like it should be like, oh, that was a judge's favorite. It should be like, bam, damn, that was awesome.
Yes.
I haven't seen that before. That you know.
I mean, is there another? There must be. Actually, while you've been talking, we've been watching your Olympic runs on YouTube. Yeah, is there somebody that helps you come up with ideas, like for a new move or a new twist? We were watching the 2002 Olympics. They said, "Oh, no more twists, please," or something.
Yeah, no more twisters.
Is there somebody that kind of helps you come up with ideas? Like, hey, why don't you try this? Maybe move and do that. Do you have like an aerial choreographer that helps you out with this stuff, or are you coming up with it by yourself?
That's funny. That's probably next down the line. People will have like figure skating, where you have like someone who's coming in and helping you analyze and come up with a new trick or something like that. No, I mean the sport. Like the dinner roll, just take that for example, right? It's like a guitarist, you know. You learn all these tricks that other people, all these riffs that other people did. You learn all these chords. You learn these tricks from your whole life growing up. You learn the fundamentals, right? You start with these very basic tricks, you know, with like my brother out on the hill. Like Rick taught me the first 360, and then you know you see a trick in a video and you try to do that, and then you learn a little bit more moguls. And then you go to a camp and you see other people doing that. So you step up, you start learning that. But then once you get to a certain level of kind of mastery, like basically you can do every trick that's out there right then.
Right.
You start riffing on your own. And for me, and nothing's made up out of thin air, but you sort of have influences. Like snowboarding was a big influence on, you know, the beginning of the free skiing movement in 96, 95, when we started grabbing our skis. And, you know, I took that 360 mute grab from JP Auclair and I put it in my mogul run, and that's what I won with. The dinner roll came because I loved this trick in snowboarding called a rodeo. I watched these tricks in videos and I was like, wow, I didn't even know you could rotate in that axis. And of course, I had the fundamentals. At that point, I could do triple twisting, triple backflips, and 720s and 1080s and everything. So it wasn't hard. Once I saw that rodeo, I thought to myself, you know, I bet I could do that on skis, and I could do it with one more rotation. And I basically, you know, visualized this thing in my head. I just sort of started like working out how I would take off and how I would do it and how I would land. And I just started like picturing it and playing it over and over in my head.
Yeah.
And went out and tried it one day and got spanked, dislocated my shoulder, and then went and tried it on a water ramp first so I wouldn't hurt myself any worse. And I started to get it down, and then I took it to a jump, and then I ended up getting a silver in the X Games with that trick. And then I won the US Open the following year by taking it to a 900. So first it was a dinner roll 7, a dinner roll 900. Mm-hmm. Anyway, long story short, then I decided to adapt it to the moguls. But that was kind of the genesis of that type of trick. It wasn't, there's still, the cool thing about skiing is there's still a bit of that, like, you go skiing with your buddies and one guy does one thing and you build. There's a little bit of that pig, you know, that game of basketball pig going on.
Yeah, it's funny. There was this movie called it was about the USSR hockey team and how they were getting beaten by the Canadians all the time, and they brought in this new coach who was determined, I think it was in the 60s or something, to make Russian hockey fantastic. So he started watching ballet. Right, and he started looking at all these other disciplines and and other sports and trying to figure. And they came up with that sort of circular attack where the Russians would kind of constantly be moving in circles like that. And he'd studied a lot of different disciplines. But you said you looked at snowboarders. But were there any other athletic influences?
I actually can answer this question a little bit for Jonny, and I owe it to my cousin. So his brother Rick also skied competitively, and my cousin, who was a ballerina, did a little bit of time with them in the ski ballet part back when that was a thing. Do you recall that at all, Jonny? Or
absolutely,
yeah. So they definitely, even back then, this is in the early '90s, were looking at other ways to deal in space and time. I'm taking over the interview for you.
Go ahead.
But they did, and they did decades ago.
Oh, wow.
Well, we did. Yeah, I mean that's another part of it, Mark, too, is, I mean, I was talking about the tricks a lot, but, there was, I did, freestyle skiing in the beginning was 3 events. It was aerials, moguls, and ballet. And so, they were very different events and they all influenced each other. But yeah, as cross training, I used to take a lot of dance and ballet, and that certainly helped with all my aspects. And then, to your hockey point, I also had awesome coaches. Like I had a guy come in before the 98 Olympics, and he watched every video of all the champions and broke down, the fundamental like core element he thought that all great mogul skiers had. And we basically worked on that all summer in his garage and on the hill and back and forth from the hill to his garage. So there's some of that as well. Like I definitely didn't, on the trick side, I kind of developed that on my own, but
sure.
a lot of the other elements, you had kind of that up whatever Rocky Balboa type coach,
chasing the chicken in the yard.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Hey, I want to cover some of the other stuff you're working on. Obviously, NBC and Squaw and Alpine Meadows, all those guys. But you have your web series. Let's talk about that, and then let's also talk about IOTA. I'm definitely, as a middle-aged guy that weighs way too much, I'm always looking for ways to up my snackability and protein. So help me understand these two things.
Yeah, so it's a roasted organic sunflower kernel. I too went low carb a number of years ago just because I was not as disciplined as I thought I was. Basically, I figured out that I was not, when I was in good shape back when I was competing, it was only because I had coaches and trainers, and that's all I did for work was work out, and ski. But at some point, and I always resisted the diet component of things, and or just watching what I ate, just ate whatever I wanted because I was burning. And finally, I gave in a few years ago and was just like starting to look at high protein diets, high fat diets, that type of thing, and it really worked for me. But snacking was always a problem, just because Cliff bars and power bars and all that crap is pretty loaded up with carbs. So this friend of ours, my wife and I, came out of Crave Beef Jerky, and she said, "Hey, have you guys, do you guys eat many sunflower seeds? They're really healthy for you, and they kind of check all the boxes as far as carbiness and everything like that goes." And we were like, "Yeah, I mean, I love seeds in the shell, but I've been eating those for years." And she said, "Yeah, well, what about out of the shell?" And started baking them up and putting different, flavors on them, and they were just great, really good. And so we kind of hatched this business. We settled on our few favorite flavors. One, salt and vinegar, which we call apple cider vinegar and tamari. It's called umami. And the other one's sweet, which is demerara, sugar, and sea salt. And they're just very lightly flavored. And we have a plain one called pink Himalayan salt. And they come in this spouted pouch, so you don't have to hand them with your hands. You just throw them in your back pocket or in your backpack, and you just hit a little bit on the chairlift, and they're super dense and more protein ounce for an egg. And so it took us a while to get it all together, but we launched in June, and now we're in a bunch of stores up here: Nugget, Woodland, Sports Basement, and going into Pete's Coffee and all that stuff. So we're pretty fired up. It's
That's
going
cool.
well, and yeah.
Can you order them online as well?
And you can order them online. Yeah, Mighty Iota. MightyIota.com. Yeah.
The low carbiness.
Cool. I'll have to get you in contact with my buddy Pete, another Pete, and they do shelf stable foods down here in all the grocery stores. So I'll make
cool.
an introduction.
Please.
Yeah. And one thing too, I was thinking about you being quotable and notable, and thinking about that even then. Man, you had an awesome quote when you won. I'm going to paraphrase your quote, but basically it was, "When I landed the 360 mute grab, I knew I was golden." Man, that's exactly what you're talking about. And I hope that when you're in the Olympics, you get to see one of those moments and make the call in advance, like that's the gold moment right there. That'd be something cool to see, man.
Yeah. No, it was a moment. I mean, I had run last, so I had won the qualification round, so I'd seen all the scores go, and everyone laid down these amazing runs, but I was doing something no one was doing, and the judges were rewarding it, so I kind of knew it was just a matter of getting it done. Like they had, no one really had the package I had brought, and that was a good feeling. I mean, that was a rare feeling to have when you get checking, when you're firing on all cylinders, and it's yours to lose. And I just was able to execute. I mean, I was coming in way out of control to the bottom jump and on my tails, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, I have to hit this jump. Like, if I'm back a little bit, I'm screwed. I'm not going to be able to get the grab. I'll barely land it. It's over. And I just leaped like the hardest pop I've ever done in my whole life, and just elevated that thing. And I knew as soon as I got in the air, actually, I'm like, oh shit, I just nailed this trick. Like, it's on autopilot right now. And that's kind of how I knew once I landed, I had it.
Wow. Yeah. I think you landed the interview pretty well right there. Yeah. I guess carbiness, I think, is kind of quotable, though. I think I haven't heard that word yet before.
Carbiness. Yeah.
I hit a pretty low carbiness.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that, too. Yeah, I'm not sure I've ever used it. So
this one question I wanted to ask you. It's it might be a little bit in depth for what we have, but maybe you could throw something at us. It seems that you're extremely accomplished as an athlete, as a host, as a businessman. You must get so many different ideas, either things you've always wanted to do or people bringing things to you. How do you decide what Jonny Moseley is going to do next?
Yeah.
And do you talk about yourself? And do you talk about yourself in the third person?
Do I talk about myself in the third person? No. I'm gonna start. Jonathan W. Moseley. The way Jonathan W. Moseley does it. I mean, that's what it takes to be the next president, is talk about yourself in the third person with your middle initial.
Right.
I mean,
God, Jonny Moseley.
And I was on reality TV, so I'm all set. I don't know. I kind of, these days I kind of do a lot of pitching. So a lot of the stuff I'm working on are ideas I've had and I've gone out and convinced other people to get on board with. So that's one of my favorite things to do, is kind of think of stuff and try to get it done. It's like my favorite part of the whole process is trying to make these deals and see an idea to fruition. So in that case, obviously, I'm just kind of like coming up with different ideas I have. Like the Jonny Moseley's Wildest Dream thing was just a reaction to. It was originally in my mind called Secret Spots, and it was a reaction to, me going to hang out with people and meet people that really wanted to go do cool stuff, show me their secret spots. And I'm like, I can't, go abalone diving there. I've got a family. I just can't do all of it's great. Thanks for the opportunity, but I just don't have time to do all this stuff. So I turned it into a piece of work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the type of stuff I like working on. Some of it's like a blend of marketing and self-interest, really. And then as far as other deals coming my way, I mean, I'm willing to try almost everything, depending on what's the scope of it is. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Is there a sailing Olympic medal in your future?
Yeah, I used to talk a big game about that, but I think that ship has sailed. No pun intended. I thought I might be able to get back in the game, but it's a sport that is, I have a big blank spot there of no learning, and it would be almost impossible. But I'll still harbor it. I did just do a deal with Mount Gay Rum. That's going to get me back on the boat a little bit. They have a new dark rum, like a aged rum, 20 black barrel. And so we're doing a bunch of après ski stuff, but the trade out is they got to put me into their sailing program. So I've got them on the hook. So,
well, if it's any help at all, I was a Captain Morgan model, so I know how to sell rum.
There you go.
So
cool.
we could team it up. Yeah,
I love it. That's awesome.
How are your knees? We've just been watching these videos of you banging down these hills.
Yeah, very lucky. I've never had any knee issues. I think I was literally just born to ski moguls, man. I think I have just the right angles, like my knees poking just enough, and I'm duck-footed just enough that I was kind of born to stand on the inside edge. And I think I like to give myself a lot of credit for trying to take care of my body and being limber and stretching, but that's all baloney. It's just like genetics. I mean, I will say I think I know how to fall. Like, I don't hang on too long. I can ragdoll. But that's caused me to have shoulder problems and neck problems and concussions. So there's nothing free. I'm not getting away with it. But luckily, my knees, man, are golden. So
beautiful.
I got one more thing for you. Then I'm going to thank you for the time and let Mark have whatever else he wants. But
I'm good.
we had Laird Hamilton on the show, and I wanted to say, I know he's super incredible. And you guys are both approached your sport in a similar way where you weren't going to be bound by what was there. But the one thing he got better than you was the air chair, because let's be honest.
you remember that?
I remember everything.
The boat when I did that? Holy smokes, Pete! He did. Definitely, that was a fail on my part. Oh my god! I know, it's so funny. That thing came around and whacked me in the head.
I was terrified of that thing.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Hey, listen, we've had you for the hour that you said you could give us, and we know you're super busy, and for sure we'll be promoting what you do because I love it, and I love what you've done. Just the leap from Olympian to where you are now, man, that's a big leap. And whatever notoriety Glenn Plake had when you guys were both emerging, you've continued to evolve and build something truly incredible, man. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, nice to meet you, John.
Appreciate it. Yeah, nice to meet you as well, man. We'll do it again.
Grab Jonny at Jonny Moseley on Twitter, and be sure to check out his web series. Everything he does is great. So thank you again, Jonny. We'll talk to you soon. Good luck at the Olympics.
All right, thanks. Cheers, man.